Under the blinding sun of Los Angeles, the red carpet glimmered like a river of rubies. Cameras flashed in an endless storm of white light, 1,000 lenses devouring every gown, every smile, every whispered scandal. The air smelled of perfume and asphalt, champagne and sweat, the scent of ambition at its most desperate. And then, it happened. "Sir, you can't stand here." The words sliced through the laughter like a blade. A young security guard, no older than 25, stood rigid before an older man whose faded cap bore the emblem of a unit few in the crowd would recognize. His jacket was plain, his shoes scuffed, and his hands, large, veined, calloused, clutched a small wooden box. He said nothing. He didn't move. Behind him, traffic honked impatiently. In front of him, Hollywood royalty floated by in glittering gowns, smiling for cameras, waving at screens that projected their faces 50 feet high. Nobody saw the man. Nobody except the guard, who mistook dignity for trespass. "I said, you can't be here," the guard repeated, louder now. "This area's for invited guests only." The old man raised his eyes, steady, ocean-gray eyes that had seen deserts burn and cities crumble. He didn't answer. He simply looked at the boy, then past him, toward the enormous banner above the entrance that read, "Heroes Among Us, a night to honor bravery in film." And for a moment, the hypocrisy of it all shimmered under the hot California sky. He had come not for fame, but for memory. Inside that wooden box was a medal, not his own, but his brother's. A brother who never came home. A brother whose story was once whispered across radios, then forgotten beneath layers of entertainment and applause. People in silk gowns stepped around him as though he were invisible. Someone muttered that he was probably lost, or worse, looking for charity. The guard's hand rested on his earpiece, waiting for permission to remove him. Still, the man didn't move. He stood silent, like a monument carved from the grief of a nation that had forgotten the weight of its own freedom. Inside, the crowd cheered as an actor accepted an award for portraying a soldier. Cameras caught the glitter of tears on his face as he thanked those who served. But outside, the real thing was being told to leave. The old man's name was Thomas Reed. 40 years ago, he was a medic in the 3rd Infantry, deployed to a war that left no heroes, only survivors. His hands had carried men who were half his weight and twice his courage. His eyes had seen the kind of silence that lives in the space between heartbeats, where death waits, patient and merciless. When he returned home, there were no parades. Just a letter of discharge and a train ticket that smelled of rust and regret. The world had moved on. The cameras found new wars to admire, ones with better lighting. But every year, on the anniversary of his brother's death, Thomas visited the city. He carried the same wooden box, the same silence, the same guilt, the feeling that he lived while better men did not. This year, for the first time, the event honoring bravery was held at the very theater where he and his brother once dreamed of watching movies as children. It seemed poetic, almost divine. He didn't come to be seen. He came to leave the medal, to return it to the earth of stories, hoping maybe, just maybe, someone would remember that courage wasn't fiction. The guard's patience thinned. "Sir, if you don't move, I'll have to call for backup." Thomas didn't flinch. His lips trembled slightly as though fighting to form words, but they never came. He had said enough in his life, to commanders, to doctors, to widows. Now, silence was all he trusted. People gathered at a distance, curious. Some recorded on their phones, whispering about the old man causing trouble. A famous actress in a golden gown paused briefly, glanced over, then turned back to the cameras. Her smile didn't waver. And yet, not everyone was blind. Among the crew bustling near the carpet was a young journalist, her press badge swinging from her neck. Her name was Lila Moreno, a freelancer barely making rent, covering the event for a small independent channel no one took seriously. But she saw him. She noticed the tremor in his hands, the box, the patch on his sleeve. Something about the scene struck her. The absurdity of a soldier being shamed on the night Hollywood pretended to honor them. Inside her chest, curiosity twisted into something sharper, moral outrage. She began recording, not the celebrities, him. Thomas finally lowered his gaze to the wooden box. He opened it carefully, revealing the metal, tarnished, edges worn, ribbon faded to pale blue. It caught a glimmer of light before fading again, swallowed by the glare of camera flashes nearby. He whispered to himself, a whisper that no one heard, but the world somehow felt. Then he began to move, slowly, limping, toward the velvet ropes that separated Fee. The guard stepped forward. "Sir, I can't let you in," Lila called out before she could stop herself. "Wait!" Her voice startled the crowd. Heads turned. The moment froze. Every lens shifted toward her and then toward the man she was pointing to. A ripple of confusion spread across the carpet. The actor on stage faltered mid-sentence as murmurs reached the doorway. The security guard hesitated, torn between orders and humanity. Lila's voice wavered but held. "That man's a veteran. Look at his jacket." The logo on Thomas's sleeve finally caught the light, an insignia few recognized, but one that, to those who did, carried the weight of blood and honor. For a moment, even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. The event coordinator rushed out, irritation etched into her polished smile. "What's going on here?" Lila faced her, trembling but resolute. "You're honoring heroes tonight, aren't you? Maybe start with the real one standing outside." The coordinator's expression faltered. She turned to Thomas, eyes scanning the worn uniform, the scar on his wrist, the hollow tiredness of someone who's seen too much. Thomas said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence was heavier than any speech. One by one, the people who had been watching with their phones lowered them. Shame crept into the faces of those who had mocked him only moments ago. The security guard's shoulders dropped. "Sir," he said quietly now, "please forgive me." "I didn't." Thomas shook his head, not in anger, but in mercy. He placed a hand on the young man's arm, steady, forgiving. The boy flinched at the touch, as if realizing the depth of what he had done. Without another word, Thomas extended the box toward him. The gesture was simple but seismic. The metal rested between their hands, one hand trembling from youth, the other from memory. "Keep it safe," Thomas murmured at last, voice cracked but steady. "It belongs to all of you now." Lila caught the words. Her camera recorded everything, though she knew it wasn't a story. It was a confession from history itself. Moments later, someone from inside came out. The actor who had won the award for playing a soldier. His face was still painted in practiced emotion. But when he saw Thomas, the performance fell away. He approached, eyes wide, unsure what to say. "You served?" Thomas nodded once. The actor swallowed hard, then reached into his pocket. He pulled out the golden trophy, a symbol of honor he'd earned for pretending to be what Thomas truly was. Slowly, reverently, he knelt and placed the statue inside the wooden box next to the medal. And then he whispered, so softly only those closest could hear, "This should have been yours." The cameras caught it. The image of a famous actor kneeling before a forgotten soldier flooded the internet within hours. The story spread faster than gossip ever could. The real hero of Hollywood Boulevard, they called it. Millions watched, millions wept, and somewhere in the middle of it all, Thomas disappeared quietly into the crowd. No one saw him leave, but they saw what he left behind, a truth that shimmered brighter than any spotlight. that heroism is not defined by applause. It is defined by endurance, by sacrifice, by the courage to remain silent when the world demands spectacle. In the following days, the theater erected a plaque near the entrance, engraved with words that came from that night. Some heroes don't walk the red carpet. They built it. Lila became known not for chasing scandals, but for telling stories that mattered. The young guard visited veterans' shelters weekly, learning the histories of those who had gone unseen, and the actor, once famous for his roles, began funding programs for real soldiers instead of scripts about them. But Thomas never returned. His apartment remained as he left it, neat, quiet, a folded flag on the mantel beside an empty metal case. A single note rested beneath it, written in an unsteady hand. If they remember, that's enough. And they did remember. The image of him standing at the velvet rope became a symbol, a silent challenge to a world drowning in noise. Schools used it in lessons about humility. Studios used it to re-examine what they celebrated. Years later, at another awards show, the same actor stood on stage and spoke, voice trembling as he looked toward the back of the theater where an empty seat was reserved in Thomas's honor. He didn't quote him directly, but the message lingered in every pause, every tear that refused to fall. The audience rose in silence, not to applaud but to stand in respect. No music, no speeches, just stillness, the kind that humbles the soul. And for the first time in decades, Hollywood felt something real. The lights above shimmered softer that night, as if bowing too. Behind all the glamour, beneath the flash and artifice, the city of illusions had glimpsed the one thing it could never fabricate: truth. Somewhere far away, on a quiet high,